I pray. Like I always pray, like, what is the path for me? And I can say when I decided I didn't want to do that Survivor series, that was going to be it. I was going to close the door and go to 40 over 40. I didn't pray about that. And so, and I guess that was God's way of saying, okay, you can change the name of it, but it doesn't change the word.
Ashanta, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited you're here.
I am too. I'm super excited.
But why don't we start by you just telling us who you are, where you're located, and just sort of the general of your business piece, how long you've been in business, that kind of thing.
Perfect. So I'm Ashanta Staten, and I am in North Carolina. I'm in central North Carolina in the Raleigh area. So about 3.5, 4 hours from you in Asheville. It's a great location I'm kind of south of the city of Raleigh. I'm about 30 minutes south, 45 if you're driving the speed limit. It's a great little city, small town, the county population less than 30,000. I started as a wedding photographer mainly because I was convinced by a friend that she needed me to shoot her wedding, and I had never shot people before. So that's always fun. And I'm like, okay, she's crazy. That cannot be the truth. And I shot her wedding for $300 and her destination wedding for $300 and a hotel. So after that, I remember I had been on YouTube like for the months leading up to her wedding and just wanted to make sure that I was ready. And so I had never second shot, had never done anything, highly discourage anyone from going this route. But I was ready. In my mind, I was ready. Got there, forecast shifted, storm came in, rained it out. So it ended up being indoors in a venue with brown paneled walls.
Oh,
it was horrible. So I had a flash. I had never used a flash. So a couple of hours before the wedding, I was like, on YouTube again. Like, let's just figure it out. I mean, it is what it is. Let's make it work. So I had also promised a reveal, like the next morning. You would have, a sneak peek the next morning when you wake up after your wedding day.
Okay.
Somebody on YouTube did it. So sure, I could do that. And I stayed up all night, got her images. I hated them all. She loved them all. I woke up. When I woke back up again, she had posted images all over Facebook and tagged me and thanked me. And so I think it was then that I realized that weddings are a roller coaster, but I like roller coasters. So I stayed with it for a little while, up until COVID. And once that was in 2016, COVID in 2020, I was like, okay, all of my weddings for the 2020 season canceled. And it forced me to say I wanted to pivot. So when I decided to pivot, I pivoted to newborns. And I loved newborns until I didn't. So it takes one baby to make you question your life. And then it takes 2 or 3 to realize, okay, maybe I need to go another route. And I remember being on CreativeLive and ran into some stuff with Sue Bryce. And then I was like, okay, so I can actually make money in photography without being a wedding photographer and without shooting newborns. So let's see what happens. And I haven't looked back.
I love that. And I discovered Sue similarly. She and I have had a very deep mentoring relationship since 2015. And for the first couple of years, she may not have realized it, but we were super close.
That's my story.
Well, and that's, that happens with the education, especially when it's powerful, and the beauty of Sue Bryce and the way she created her business model is that the impact is that it does work.
It does.
And once you put those pieces in place, then you can start tweaking. And a lot of people, myself included, come into the space of like all of your personal blocks come up about why it won't work for you because you're special, you're different, you're all the air quotes in the world,
Exactly.
right? And it's not until you actually put the pieces in place as prescribed to address those limiting beliefs and so on and so forth. And so coming from a space of 30,000 people in your town, like I can see how that was probably a pretty daunting task.
Yeah, for me, I have a day job. So it meant, okay, Sue said I can charge this for photography. Why can't I? Like, I'm paying my bills. So whatever I do, if it doesn't work, I can change it, but I'll try it. So I did. And I remember, like, when I say I found Sue in February of 2021, I started building a studio in February of 2021 because I was like, oh, if I'm going to do this, I'm like, if you tell me to do it, I'm going to do it. If I fail, I'll fail fast. And, we can do something else. So here I am. I built a studio right next door to my house because I felt like at least if it didn't work, I could have a storage shed. So I had a person reach out. She said to me, my daughter has been asking about her senior pictures. She loves your wedding work because I didn't have anything else out there at the time. She said, I love your wedding. She loves your wedding work and she wants you to do her senior pictures. Please tell me that you can do them. And I was like, sure, let me tell you, I'm building a studio. And it's funny, she reached out in like March. And so the studio was ready late April.
Okay.
And she reached out and I told her, I was like, I've got a studio coming. I want to, wait to get her in because she was coming up on her senior year. So we weren't at the point where we had to rush to get it done. It worked out perfectly. She came in, we did her session. She had multiple outfits. At the time I was doing an in-person reveal about 2 weeks after the session. I ordered product from Graphy because Sue was Graphy. I'm like, okay, that's the blueprint. I'm going with Graphy. Ordered first I had like 50 images. In the studio, I have a garage door. So I use my garage door as my reveal wall. I could only put 28 images up because it's only so much space. So they walked in the door. And when they walked in the door, they were audibly amazed. And I was like, okay, I just kept remembering, just let them have their moment. Don't say anything. And so I, sat in the back. I, laughed as they would laugh at some and smiled, just thinking, how's this going to go? And so because the 28 were there, I had educated them on product. And at the time, the only thing I was offering was a reveal box. It worked to the point that Mom said, she was the first one to speak. And she says, Sydney, what do you want? Because I'm getting the reveal box. I want that box. At this time, they hadn't even seen the box because my samples hadn't came in when I had talked to her, but I had explained to her, it's a living frame. You can change the image on the front of it. And so, when they came, she was like, I want the box. Sydney, what do you want? And I did have a 9-up. And so it had it had not been framed when they were here for the session, but then it was framed when they came in. So it was sitting near the reveal wall. So I thought for sure Sydney would say, well, I want that 9-up. And so then that would put them, they would choose some of the images. I would have some to market with. So that my thing was, I need to keep some so I can use them to stay on the reveal wall during the day. And Sydney was like, I don't know. And I think her I don't know was in that she knew what the pricing was, but Mom also knew what the pricing was. And so she had already claimed that reveal box. I said, well, I have more images. So Sydney, if you would like a reveal box, you could have a reveal box too. So Mom turned around and she was like, you have more images. So I pulled out the extra images and, they go through them, love them all, took all 50 images, and that first sale was $6,000. And I said then, if this can happen just with someone who randomly reaches out to me, no pricing anywhere, learning it on the fly, really, I think I can do this. And so no looking back from there.
Was there ever a point, especially in that early space, where you said to yourself, like, you were going to change a part of your process, or were you just blinders up? Sue said, I'm going to go do the thing. Like, were you avoiding any like limiting beliefs that you were carrying versus like following the step-by-step directives?
So initially my thought was, of course, in a town of 30,000, and that first client was local. So she was, someone who her daughter actually went to school with my son. I had never met her, but the daughter, she came in here like she knew who I was. I thought, in a town of 30,000, this is never going to work. There is no way that this can work in my town. But then I had heard enough of Sue saying it can work anywhere that I think I was definitely on this Sue Bryce train right then. And it was like, well, if this woman says it's going to work, it's going to work. I had joined, in February, I didn't know the group existed. So by the time I joined the group, it was before that session, the Facebook group, the big group,
the members group, sure,
the members group. And so I had gone through and saw testimonial after testimonial of people that it was working for. So for me, that was huge in being able to see, okay, so this can work. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try it. I had went through the consultation piece. I like as many videos as I could get in, while building a studio and working another job. I had gone through a lot of stuff that I felt like I needed. My biggest thing was, well, if I have this session and they only purchase, 2 images or 3, I love the images. So I kind of figured that they would want something because I had not shot a senior session in the studio. So, even though I had done some stuff and had captured seniors, I had been charging like $300-$400 for senior sessions. Mm-hmm. So, and they would get all of the images. So this was my first in-person reveal. So for me, it was about seeing if something could change and work differently. And so I literally went in with all of this. I'm going to do it exactly as it said, because if it failed, I wanted to be able to say, I failed because this Sue Bryce thing doesn't work. And I was not able to do that. So even though I had doubts, I was willing to work through it, at least through that first session, to see how that went before I made a final decision on whether or not it was going to work. And it did. So it worked out.
Is there any one piece of advice you've been given over the years, like 2013, 2020, that has stuck with you and really changed either how you view the business, how you stay motivated? Like, is there one piece of advice that sticks out in your mind as something that really helped you build momentum?
That first client, she said to me, and, I would think that advice would come from a person like in the industry. But my first client, she said to me after, they paid me $6,000 in cash. She said to me, don't stop doing this. Nobody around here is doing this, and people need what you're doing. And I thought, to hear it from someone not in the industry, someone who's, her daughter was, she did cheer, competition cheer. So she was used to paying, a couple of $100s for the images that someone captured at their event. Mm-hmm. So she was used to paying that lower dollar. But to hear her say, this is something that's needed, gave me the push to keep going. And the money helped as well.
Well, there's a lot of pushback around money, or I could never charge that here, or that's just so much, I need to be affordable, so on and so forth. And I think the piece that a lot of people are missing is, in order for you to have the impact you want to have, right? Like being able to have the space to print your work, to deliver confidence to people or facilitate that, right? And grow in your skill set and master your craft, like that can't be done for $300. It's not sustainable. And what I love about, this business model that, Sue Bryce has taught for years, that I teach on the Studio Takeover, is that it is based off of your sustainability, the work you want to do and how you want to live your life. And you had mentioned earlier, you know, having a day job in addition to your studio. Is it your day job something that you want to continue to maintain, or is it something you're hoping to walk away from?
It's a good question. I definitely plan to walk away from it. I have the best insurance there. And so that's been like the piece that's kept me. So I've thought, let's get through any, you know, I'm getting older. I'm 49. I'll be 50 in February. So I wanted to make sure that any underlying health situations were completely taken care of before I lose my day job. I make more in photography than I make at my day job now. So that is not, you know, the holdup. And I know that I could definitely scale my business to the point of being able to have both of the, you know, to be able to replace that daytime income as well as, you know, because it's been a couple of years. Last year, I reached the $100,000 mark.
Terrific.
And this year I was closed for a month because it was hot and my AC went out in the studio. And, you know, I just had another month where I traveled so much that I didn't. So it was 2 months I didn't work, and I'll still reach that 100,000. I'm like at 80 something right now. So I'll still reach it before the end of the year.
That's fantastic.
It's great.
And being able to do that with being closed for so long, right? For various reasons, right? And that just shows that, you know, you are building momentum and you're working more efficiently. And yeah, ooh, that's good stuff. I love seeing the numbers like that. Now, have you considered, are you working at a pace, like given there's also a job here in addition to running your business, are you at a pace that you feel is overwhelming, or are you managing it pretty well? Like, are you dropping any rubber balls or glass balls, as it were?
Yes, I have found that less is more. So I am a boutique studio. I take on no more. My goal would be 6 to 8 clients a month. The most I've comfortably done is 10. And I'm happy with that. I shoot 2, sometimes 3 days a month. I actually remember being at WPPI and hearing Sarai talk about shooting once a month, like a $30,000 headshot day. And I thought, what?
Oh, yes.
So I haven't gone to that level of crazy just yet, but it works. I'm doing 3-4 sessions a day, and shooting 2 days a week. Every now and then I'll have, not a week, a month. So I have 2 shoot days a month. It allows me to be able to do everything that I need to do for the clients, but I also outsource a good bit. One thing that I wanted to do, one thing that made me happy with Sue Bryce Education at the time was the fact that I could charge enough to outsource my editing and retouching from the start. So if I charged enough and I started it from the start, it wouldn't be like something I was adding and have to pay for later. So I decided to go for the top brand with Graphy to make it the best product available around. I also decided to do outtouching of my retouching, which was not an easy task to find someone that I trusted with it, but I just had to, allow the time to send samples out to people and, get the work back and see how they worked. I've worked with, my main retoucher has been the same retoucher from the time I started. I laugh a lot because I say, I don't know if it's a real person. I have never spoken to her on the phone, but anytime I send a message, she's very responsive. She gets me my images back. She used to get them back to me in 2 days. And I just told her, I was like, I don't need them back in 2 days. Like, give me 4 days, 4 to 5 days, and I'm fine. If I have anything that I need faster, I let her know. But typically, if I can get them back in, a week, I'm still fine with my delivery, because I always, under promise, over deliver, or what is it? whichever way. So like
under promise, over deliver.
Under promise, over deliver. Yeah. And that way they're not expecting anything back from me as a finished product until 2 weeks after the session. So they get it back to me. I do final touches on it. And I've got that down to a minimum, trying to get it right in camera. So there's not a lot of work to be done. By the time I get the images back, I might spend 30, 45 minutes if they purchase 20. Doing the in-person reveal has helped tremendously with not having to, I don't have to call myself. They do the calling before they leave the studio. So that saves time. It's really been manageable. And what I do, I only shoot during the week, which is amazing because what I'll do, because I'm only shooting 2 days a month, I'll schedule it around my work schedule. So if I'm going to have a shoot day, I just take a leave day from work. And that way I don't have to worry about trying to do all the things on the weekend. The benefit of my day job was no weekends. So I didn't want to start a business where I had to work on the weekends.
Sure.
And, weddings were all weekends. And so when I pivoted, the big thing was to be able to pivot successfully, but also to a place of where I wanted to be long term.
Well, and one of the things that really is kind of thematic in how you're describing, your workflow is the system of it. And even going through, and this is one of the things that I really do focus on with the Studio Takeover, is systematize everything. And so you're talking about, like, I get this to the retoucher. We're talking about deadlines. We're extending deadlines because I'm not, pressurizing myself with delivery. Even if it's a 4-day turnaround, that's terrific because now I still have another 10 days before I have to deliver. So you can work that into your workflow. And even with, like Sarai Taylor Roman and her $30,000 headshot day, it's a terrific course. If you have a chance to go and scoop it up, definitely do. Sarai is a brilliant teacher, but it's all about how you systematize every step of your process from, that design consultation. And, the design consultation when I first started in this space was like, oh, what do you want to do? And I would tell them everything and okay, great. And I would just use it as like a data space. Right. And now I've said, okay, well, I definitely need this data in order to produce like a session that's tailored to them, but how could I actually leverage this as opportunity? So we created the consultation collection, right? Which allows photographers to integrate that into their process and then also, pre-sell packages and educate their customers. If it's for branding clients, build out those marketing plans with them. And then systematizing the actual shoot day itself. So when I started, you mentioned like you get through, 3 to 4 sessions in a day now. When I was 4 years in, there's absolutely no way I would have done that without diminishing my experience, right? Mm-hmm. Diluting like, okay, well, we'll do touch-ups instead of full service. Or I was just winging it with the posing, right? And like one session would take me 4 hours. So I love that you came into this space, like knowing what you wanted to get out of it, sustainability, right? And having that creative outlet. And you even had a plan B should everything kind of go sideways on you. And now you would have a shed. Was there any specific moment where your intuition led you not astray, but into a space where you felt unsure of how you would move forward?
I did a campaign. My first campaign was, it was called Survivor. I was pretty stinky at the time. I did not know how to get clients in. I didn't know anything about marketing. I hadn't touched on that piece yet in the portrait space. And so I thought, oh, I'll do a campaign. We'll do Survivor. We're all surviving something. Lord knows we are. And I remember the first client that reached out was a man. And I thought, oh, well, do I want to shoot men? Like, he's a survivor. And so we did his session. Of course, men are not as, I don't think, emotionally driven as women are. He didn't make a purchase. He purchased my smallest collection at the time, which was $1,200. And
Okay.
so he did purchase, which was great. We did immediately after his session, I knew that the Survivor campaign was not going to be what I did. And it moved it to a 40 over 40. But after his session, I reached out to the local newspaper. They did an article, on him and his story. So it was perfect. I knew that he wasn't invested in a gala or anything to end that. So I was able to facilitate the write-up in the paper. They actually interviewed him for that. They interviewed me. And so it was a feel-good piece. And he had, been diagnosed with cancer at a very young age. And I want to say he's in his 40s now, but he was like 20 something young, and just went to the doctor for a physical because he had started a job and they had insurance. And so he was like, I think I'll go to the doctor. And the doctor, immediately the next day, he ended up having emergency surgery.
Oh my gosh.
Immediate diagnosis. It was super quick. But he taught me that it was heavy. It was heavy to hear his story. It was heavy to help tell his story. And I didn't know if that was necessarily a space that I could operate in without it being such an emotional piece. But I realized when I switched to 40/40, probably I would say of the 40 over 40-year-olds that I photographed, I would say probably 25% of them were survivors of cancer survivors. And then everybody is a survivor of anything. It still maintained that same sense of when you ask somebody what when you ask someone what their story is, we all have, for me, I lost my mom in 2016. I lost my son 9 months later in 2017. It was a period of, how do you live to get to the next thing? Because there has to be something better than the grief. And it's the same concept. The ladies that I've talked to that have, they're cancer survivors now. So all of them are survivors. It let me know, one reason that I think Sue resonated with me was because of the loss that I had experienced. I remember, and I don't think it was a focus at the time, but I remember going and looking for, as soon as my mom passed away, we need pictures. We went back, we pulled, the pictures that we had. Same thing with my son. My mom passed away 1 month after I shot that first wedding. Maybe 2 months. So it was in the end of October was that first wedding of 2016. My mom passed away in the middle of December. I didn't have those images. And I've always been the person that has the camera. So, we had celebrated her 60th birthday. And so I had tons of pictures from that. So I had those, but I didn't have any, come sit for me, for a session. I didn't have that because it was weddings I was doing. When my son passed away, I was doing weddings and I still didn't have it. But when I came across Sue, it gave me that feeling of, oh, this is something that I didn't have, but I can provide it for other people. So I think shifting to that 40 over 40 meant that there wasn't as much a limitation. Because I was over 40, it made it really easy to do a 40 over 40.
For those of you listening, stinky is a term that many of us use in this portrait space when we're chasing cash. We're chasing the bookings versus providing the impact and standing in power. But also when we refer to things, like a thematic marketing piece like Survivor or the 40 over 40, campaigns are a reason for people to do business with you. So a very terrific way to lean into your marketing is to create a campaign that resonates for you for a specific demographic and audience. And it's so interesting to me, Ashanta, because you had experienced so much loss in really such a short period of time. And you created the survivor theme, realized the impact of that, and knew deep inside you didn't want to necessarily carry the emotional, I don't want to say burden, but the emotional responsibility of holding space for people to revisit that space. Because, oftentimes with portrait, it's the point of it is missed because we're so involved in, our phones and in selfies and catching those moments on the fly at the fair when things are great. But giving yourself some grace to honor those losses and those negative experiences, and especially when you're empathetic, like many creatives are, it can be a tall order to really ask of yourself. Thankfully, you are priced sustainably, so there's at least that benefit to it. But you did mention, though, with the 40 over 40, that theme, 25%, we're still sharing stories of, their challenges and overcoming things. Did you find that holding space in that way and creating that imagery with those clients was more challenging for you as a photographer and a business owner, or was that what you were looking for during that campaign?
It was challenging for sure, but I do believe that I wanted to shift from the survivor thing, but it was obviously a space that I needed to experience, because even though it wasn't as, in your face, I still had those same clients who needed to tell their story. And I don't think I ever stopped asking the question. Like when I would get them on the phone, I would say, so what's your story? And that story was always a story of survival. Whether it was, I am recently divorced or I was in an abusive relationship, or, it was always something. And I am an empath. And so though it would be heavy at the time, I was only doing one session a day. And so it wasn't that I had to, experience the back-to-back of that. Yeah, because I imagine that could have been, even more dramatic or traumatic.
Sure.
A combination of those. I do think that even though I said, I pray, like I always pray, like what is the path for me? And I can say when I decided I didn't want to do that Survivor series, that was going to be it, I was going to close the door and go to 40 over 40. I didn't pray about that. And so, and I guess that was God's way of saying, okay, you can change the name of it, but it doesn't change the work.
Well, and your purpose is sort of defined in how you show up. And, I love efficientizing things and measuring data and, looking at all of the ways that we can keep the impact of what it is that we do and streamline the process. Because the more you can streamline without the cost of the connection, the more money you can make. Right. So absolutely. Understanding that your work is in that, like, we're going to tell your story. How do you want to be remembered? We have a campaign that we do. We're actually getting ready to launch in the new year again, is my favorite. It's Come As You Are. Yeah. And Come As You Are is a black and white campaign. You can show up however you'd like. I have had people show up in full glam with gowns, and people show up in 3-day-old jeans with a tank top. Like, yes. And everything in between. And one of the first questions I ask is, well, when you think about people telling the story of who you were, what image do you want them sharing when they're telling that story? And some people are like, ooh, that's morbid. And other people are like, whoa. And the people that always respond with the whoa are the ones that I know are they're going to get the most out of it, because now they're open to that experience. And I'm a firm believer that, portrait is transformational for people. People, it allows them to make different choices, to show up differently, to model different behavior for their children, to ask for the raise, to start the job or start the business, or paint because they want to, right?
It's really empowering. I mean, it is. I thought it was a buzzword, but it's true. It not only, empower, you don't get the empowerment just through the session, but it transforms lives. Like it is, I don't know. I want to say I was giving the experience before I had the experience. And I remember The first time Chanel Majors photographed me, and we talked about, she's another Sue Bryce person. She's here in North Carolina as well. But I remember she told me specifically, I reached out to her, I need updated headshots. I had a friend that I had met at another photography conference in 2021. She called me one day and she said, "Hey, your headshot looks like it belongs to a wedding photographer. You really need to fix that." And I thought, what? Like, okay. So she was like, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to, I've got a friend that I had met in DC at a wedding conference, actually. And I said, she's fairly local. I can drive to her. So what I'll do, I'll reach out to her and, see when she can get me in." And so I reached out and she said, "I don't want to photograph you." I said, "What?"
Oh.
And she said, "Because I've seen your work and I don't think that I can." And I said, "You are amazing. Like, I have seen your work. That's why I'm reaching out. Like, I really want you to photograph me. Like, it's, time for this to happen." So we text back and forth for a little bit. We did it. It was 5-6 hours. It was a lot.
Sure.
But she had, studio wardrobe, but it wasn't until I had that experience myself that I realized the empowering piece behind it. So that was probably, I would say, 6 months into, switching when Chanel photographed me. And just since then, just being able to look at my own images, like my own folio box, and to share that with clients, and just to let them know how my experience was, allows them to have the experience. So they feel like, oh, not only are you offering the experience, you've had the experience yourself. More recently, I was photographed by you, and that was still just the most, I hate to say empowering again, but it was. I mean, it is the single thing that you can go. Someone said once, photography is the thing that you can invest in photography. And it's the only thing that you can invest in that tomorrow and each day following is going to be worth more than it was on the day that you made the purchase. I totally agree with that. And it's an agreement that I've come to based on living it, not just on offering it and giving it to other people, but for having it myself.
One day people are going to go looking for photos of you. Period. What are they going to own?
They are.
And for a lot of people, that is photos from their wedding day or maybe childhood photos. And the people who love you aren't looking at your images and going, "God, she really should have waited until, she lost some of that weight," or "She really should have done that when she was younger." Instead, it's, "That's my grandmother. That's my mother. That's my father. That's my brother." And to be photographed, we talk a lot about empowerment. And, cliches are cliche for a reason. It's truth.
True.
But having, and I think that's really why I started investing in quality products versus just what's the cheapest thing I can get away with. And it's because of that investment piece that now I have something tangible that's going to outlive me and 2 generations behind me. That's going to bring me back to that moment. That's going to be part of that story that people share when they talk about who I was. But for me specifically, it's that can take me back to that moment and show me that version of myself where all of those dreams are true.
Absolutely.
Right. When you get out of that day-to-day minutia of, you know what, I'm just not even going to put on a face today. I'm going to stick in my pajamas and chill with some Netflix. That's legit. You absolutely can. But then there are also times where life feels really overwhelming. And I get into analysis paralysis of things and what action do I take? And having that tangible piece, not just something on my phone, not just something buried on a computer I haven't even turned on in 7 years, but actual tangible proof that's physical that I can touch and see and smell and hear, that is proof that that version of me exists.
Exactly.
That transformation. And really, that's what I try to drive home, at least with our customers. It's your legacy is valuable. And legacy is also another one of those buzzwords. But it's true for a reason.
It is. I think about, you mentioned transformation, and that is huge. I remember when you reached out to me to photograph me, I remember specifically I was about to have weight loss surgery, and I knew that I would be a different person in months. But I also knew that every moment where you are now deserves to be documented, because, when that story is told, or when someone goes to look for images of me, and I know that someone will, it's the same concept. You want them to be able to see who you were at whatever given time. And so, it was a no-brainer for me, document the time. Like, there was no way I could say, oh, I would love to, but when I am a proponent of documenting where we are right now, because we might not be in that same place, but to be able to look at those images and to take you back to a good time, and sometimes not so good times, but all of it, we need to document it, because, at some point, somebody is going to go looking for images of us. And, in the words of Cat Ford Coates, what will they find?
Oh man, so much in there. So much in there. Oof. I'm doing like that, that dance you do when food's coming to the table. Like, I get excited about ideas and theories in that space, and my whole body just kind of starts moving. Oof, yeah, I could dig into legacy for hours and hours. Oof, yeah. Okay, all right. Let's shift gears a little bit. What would you say? What are 3 things that you know now that you wish you'd known when you started?
I wish I had known that I didn't have to shoot weddings to make money in photography. I wish I had known that people would invest in themselves for the sake of investing in themselves, not just because it was a special occasion.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I had known everyone is entitled to beautiful pictures. I think in my head, like now I photograph so many everyday women. There's no famous people through here yet. But they're everyday people. There are people who have decided that photography matters to them. And even if that means I'm going to have to save up for this, if it means I'm going to, find a way to finance it 12 months interest free, because Lord knows I'm not a fan of the credit, of paying the interest. But there's options for them to be able to have the experience, prepaid plans. Like, I love when somebody comes and they say specifically, look, I've been thinking about being photographed by you, and I wanted to make sure that financially I was ready for it. Mm-hmm. And here I am. And that piece, knowing that I don't necessarily have to sacrifice my boundaries in order for people to invest in themselves.
It's interesting, in a lot of marketing education, one of the things that I definitely lead with is, giving people lots of reasons to be photographed outside of yourself first, as that preliminary enticement. And one of the things I've been watching probably for the last 2 years that's really exciting for me is, yes, we want to know all of the reasons people might need imagery, whether we're talking about branding or boudoir, holidays or family photos at Christmas, or, insert reason here. More and more, I'm finding, at least with the customers coming through our door and with my mentees, and this might be part of like the pandemic hangover, It's the only thing I can really kind of put my thumb to about it is people aren't necessarily needing an outside reason now beyond themselves that I want to experience this. I want to have that artwork up on my wall because I want to remember that day. I want to feel empowered. I want to be vulnerable and see that strength in myself because they want it for themselves, which I think is, the world is changing. And I love that people being selfish in that way is causing them to make different choices without the excuse of my business needs it or the excuse of my sister wants it. But it's because they desire it for themselves, because that's going to shift a lot of marketing language for a lot of photographers so that they can reach those clients, because those clients are the ones that you have the most freedom with, you have the most trust with, and they have the most faith in you, which allows you to create the art that you want to create. And that's really exciting.
It's huge. I had a client, I haven't photographed her yet. And those were, her sentiments. She said, I want to, and it's so funny. I did a giveaway and she entered the giveaway and she booked, before the giveaway came to, even happen. She was like, I want to be photographed by you. I've adored your work. And so I have always wanted to. She said, but I've been raising these girls and now they're adults. And, I have realized that I have neglected myself. And as women often do, I'm not going to continue to do that. And so when she said it, she said it hit her. She said, and I just said that out loud, that I'm going to put myself before everybody else in my life and do something that I want to do. On the flip side, I had a client who came in and she had her session and she wanted more images than she got. And she kept saying, oh, if this was for my kids, I would do it in a minute. But I know that they're going to need something. And I instilled in her, I wanted her to understand you're still worth it. Like, there's no hard sales here. I'm not going to pressure you into anything. Sure. But you're still worth it. And so, leave in the space that you're comfortable in, but just know that, those kids are going to be fine. They're going to, they will be fine.
They'll figure it out.
And if you take care of you, you're going to be able to better take care of them. And so, she purchased a good bit. She absolutely deserves, just like everybody else, she absolutely deserves the images. She deserves beautiful images that her kids will one day go back and look at and say, that's my mom. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, and in that respect too, it is a gift for your kids. Exactly. Instead of it being a gift for your kids and the byproduct being, that was a fun time. What would it look like for you as a human being if this was a gift for you and the byproduct of that gift and self-discovery and that personal grace, what if that byproduct was the gift for your kids? And exactly. Not only in the space of like, now they have photos of mom, but in the space of, this is my mom honoring what she wanted for herself because she really, truly wanted it. And what kind of confidence is built from that for them to go after what they want in life. Like the ripple butterfly effect. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Ashanta, thank you so much for being here with me today. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Where can people find you?
I am everywhere. But a Moment Photography, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. And my website is butamomentphotography.com.
That's terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank you.